Hey Top Shelfers, welcome back to Behind the Bar, where we make historic cocktails that are enjoyed every day. This is exclusive content for everyone that's on our email list, as well as our locals patrons. So thank you so much for being part of the Top Shelf community. And today we are getting into another historic cocktail known as Dixie whiskey. Now this was a cocktail I found in our recipe book, the one that we all know and love, Just Cocktails, that was made in 1939. This particular cocktail is interesting. I found it in the book, and when I was doing my research online, I couldn't find a lot of information on it. The Dixie whiskey seems to be one that's relatively unique to that recipe book, at least in my cursory research. So today we are going to start out with a martini glass. You could also use a coupe or a cocktail glass, but I think a martini glass will fit nicely for the ingredients we have here. We are going to, of course, chill this down the classic way by throwing in some ice and some water in order to chill down the glass in order for it to be nice and cold by the time that we pour in our ingredients. We'll throw that off to the side so that while we make our drink, this will continue to chill. So let's begin. We are going to grab some ice out of our handy dandy bucket and pour that into our martini glass. And then we are going to follow that up with some water. Forgive my odd pronunciation of very easy to say words, but it makes things more interesting. And then we will put that off to the side and allow it to chill while we get into our drink. So we're going to take out our shaker. And so to begin our drink, we are going to start out with whiskey. And I'm gonna go with Wild Turkey whiskey. And the reason why is it's got some sweeter elements. It doesn't focus too much on the smoky woodiness that you would find in a lot of bourbons or whiskeys. For this particular drink, when I was looking at the ingredient list, I would certainly recommend sticking with a sweeter whiskey. I think it's going to play better with the other ingredients that we're going to throw in there. So things like a rye whiskey that will have more of a dry end on your palate, I would stick away from those and stay with something sweeter. So into our shaker, we're going to throw in 1.5 ounces because it calls for a jigger, and according to our measurements in our book, a jigger is 1.5 ounces, but prior to Prohibition, it was actually 2 ounces. So a little interesting note there, but I'm going to fill that on up. That's 1 ounce and 1.5. So we got 1 jigger of Wild Turkey in there. Then we are going to follow that up with a dash of Angostura bitters. A dash is around 1/3 teaspoon, but with the measurements that come out when you're pouring these in, it typically comes out to about that much anyway. So we're just gonna do, bang, done, perfect, 1 dash. And that's gonna add some great spice, so it's gonna be interesting. Now we get into the more oddball, I guess you could say, parts of this recipe, and it calls for 2 dashes or 2/3 teaspoon of curacao. I have the genuine curacao, which comes from the Bahamas. This is an excellent triple sec. That's pretty much what all curacao is. It is triple sec. As you can tell by the orange color, it will add some tremendous different colors to our drink. We're going to pop that off there, and we're going to measure out our 2/3 teaspoon of curacao. I find these measurements to be really interesting because it's almost like the bartender wanted to make sure that while we're playing with all of these interesting flavors, not to overpower anything. And it makes sense because I think we want the whiskey to be the king here, but we want some Dixie flavor. I don't know where the Dixie's coming from, but it's definitely unique. And then one of our last ingredients here is going to be 4 dashes, or a tablespoon plus 1/3 teaspoon of creme de menthe. So we got some Driade green mint. This is standard creme de menthe. This is going to drastically change the color, adding some greenness to our color. So this should be interesting to see how this turns out. And we're just going to stick that on up to there. pour some more in. Yep, this is gonna be interesting, honestly. I don't know how this is gonna taste. My first impression is that it will be different from what I'm hoping. And then lastly, it calls for half a lump of sugar. So we're going to plop that on in, and I'm actually going to muddle this in order to make sure that the sugar gets dispersed evenly across the drink. So we're just going to take our muddler, get it in there. We have that interesting green color going in there. Now, of course, if you didn't want the green color with your drink, you could always get white or clear creme de menthe, and that won't give you so much of a green look. But we have all of our ingredients in there. Next, what we want to do is we want to then take some ice, pour that into our shaker, and stick on the top, and give it a shake. Again, there's a lot of weird things going on with this recipe. 1, we're shaking whiskey. 2, we're adding creme de menthe to whiskey. 3, we're adding curacao to whiskey. And 4, I have no idea how this is connected to the South. But we're gonna find out. So we have our shaker all done. We are going to pour out our water-ice combination here as our drink is all chilled down. Very carefully put that away. There's our glass, and then lastly, we are going to strain into our glass. And there it is. You know, the more I look at it, the more I can understand why they called it a Dixie whiskey, because I'm from Florida and this reminds me a little of the swamp. So finally, our drink calls for a orange twist. So we're going to peel off some orange, and then we're going to give it a twist. Don't have a ton of orange there, not a great peel. Let's actually get a better peel here before we call this a drink. There we go. That's pretty good. And we're going to get out all of the oils there. There we go. And then we're going to twist, rim our glass, and pop it in. And there you have the Dixie whiskey. Let's see if it tastes like swamp water, because it looks like it. Interestingly, the mint is not overpowering. It's there. But mind you, we just sprayed all of those orange oils, so we're getting a lot of citrus. But let's see how it tastes. That's surprisingly not bad. Not my favorite drink, but it's not awful. I know that I'm not giving it as much love as perhaps some of the other cocktails I've done on this series, but the creme de menthe, because it's not a ton of amount, it's only a tablespoon plus 1/3 of a teaspoon, right? 4 dashes in there. It plays well with the angostura bitters, and it actually plays well with the whiskey. The real oddball, I guess, in this drink, which threw me off, is the curacao with the orange twist at the end. But it's also a refreshing touch. So depending on how much you like mint, this would be a really good drink for you. For me, it's still trying to convince me, the jury's still out on how much I like it, but it's a very unique drink, and it definitely reminds me, at least in Florida, of Dixie, Florida, because this looks like it came straight out of the Everglades. But that is quite interesting. Try it for yourselves. It's really quite a unique drink. I highly recommend it. Like I said, if you guys don't want it to be green, use white creme de menthe, but there you have it, the Dixie whiskey.